Hi there, and thank you so much for tuning in to CMajor before the show. We promised that we would lighten up a bit this week and share with you some sounds of love. Is music really what feelings sound like? Some think so. We'll take a look at some popular love songs in today's episode. So thank you again for tuning in today. You're here with CMajor Porter, and we are not doing a roll call today. We are just happy that you're here, and we hope that you can stay with us for today's podcast. We will start off today's podcast episode with some shout outs. I have some very exciting things happening with my students. They are learning songs on their own. They are building their library of piano songs and songs that they like to listen to. They are learning to play them on the piano. They're picking and choosing the songs they would like to learn. They're taking control of their learning, so I'm very excited about that. So shout outs to my students that are learning to play Havana, Hedwig's Theme, and Dancing Queen. Shout out to those students. And they are sticking with it. They know what they want. And so I know I said in the promo something a little humorous. I was just having some fun because I used a voice that said, "When are we going to learn to play real music?" Well, it was just in light of my students that really feel so ready to play songs on the piano as opposed to learning method. But I'm the type of teacher, I really listen to my students, and I want you to have fun at the piano and to do things that you enjoy. So if you are of a certain age and you can make those choices for yourself and you have parents that support that, then why not? So we try to have fun wherever we are at the piano. So again, big shout out to those students. And also I want to give a shout out to my musician friends who are professionals, who are already out there gigging, and they have their own music lives to keep up with. But I have a lot of musician friends that will be paying attention to tomorrow's Super Bowl. So this is Super Bowl weekend, and I just want to give a shout out to my students that are watching the Super Bowl, as well as my musician friends that are watching tomorrow's Super Bowl. So shout out to everybody. So I can say who I am rooting for, but I'm going to reserve those thoughts because it's a little controversial. I will say it that way. And so I'm just having fun with the parents that are for one team and I may be for the other team, and we're just having some fun with it all. But shout out to everyone who is celebrating this weekend by watching the Super Bowl. Also, I want to mention the weather. That's something that we talk about here on CMajor before the show. So if you are in the greater New York City area, you know how cold it was this past week. And my thoughts just go out to anyone who was not able to keep as warm as you wanted to. But it was a big deal. It was really, really cold. I think I experienced something that you usually joke about when you're drinking a cold drink, an iced drink. But I think I experienced brain freeze. It was so cold. We're talking about 3 degrees. But my heart goes out to anyone who experienced anything lower than that. I heard about some of our friends in Chicago and other places where the temperatures were well below zero, and then the wind chill factor was even lower than that. So our hearts are with anyone who had some devastating experiences with the weather. But on the bright side of things, we are looking up. Today is Groundhog Day. And I have to say, Punxsutawney Phil came through for us this year. He really did. So we are expecting an early spring. Very excited about that. And today's weather did show that we were above freezing today. So we started out with freezing temperatures this morning and we were able to get above freezing. So, I am very happy to hear that the weather is going to be warming up. And that's great, great news. And that the 40% prediction rate might just be in our favor this year. So thanks again, Punxsutawney Phil. Really appreciate that. Also, I want to give a shout out to our friends that are musicians who also are a part of coffee culture. So if you read today's promo for today's episode, you know that I stated a very long drink. The drink specifications were quite lengthy for the drink that I mentioned in today's promo. And believe it or not, I can state an even longer one. But what's more important, I feel that as a musician, I connect with so many other musicians when it comes to coffee culture. Just over a cup of chai, over a cup of dark roast, whatever the case may be, I feel like I've met so many musicians that pass through and they share their love of music and we're able to converse about that, and it makes a big difference. So shout out to all of my friends who are musicians who also are a part of coffee culture. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to jump right into our sounds of love and romance found in pop music. So what does that mean? And of course, I'm going to throw in a couple of aside things that I'll just throw in. I want to mention some things on the side. So just look out for that. But sounds of love and romance found in pop music. And I really am talking about music of the 20th century in this episode. So you read it right, 20th century, not 21st century. And next week, we will talk about a love song that was written in the 21st century. But we're going to reserve our comments for next week on that. So let me just mention the source here. We are also celebrating Black History Month. So if you saw that in today's promo, if you saw hashtag Black History Month, we are really making the effort to mention some of the music of Black Americans and to use the history book that we used over the summer. So I did not make this same book part of the syllabus, but I did want to mention it in today's podcast. And who knows, before the month is out, I may revisit this again. But it's also just to keep in mind the recent passing of James Ingram, one of, I think, many of my Facebook friends, one of their favorite musicians of all time. I keep seeing so many comments about how many people were really touched by the music that he made in his lifetime. So our prayers are with his family and his friends, and we're really saddened to hear of his passing. But he is mentioned in this book, The Music of Black Americans, A History, 3rd edition by Professor Eileen Southern, who is also no longer with us. But I don't know if there's a newer edition of this book, but this book was gifted to me, and I like to use it from time to time because I feel like it's a really good resource for me to just tap into, and it also gives me the opportunity to look things up. So I'm going right to that page that talks about popular music. And again, as always, I always say, if you have any questions about the resources that we use here on the show, feel free to let me know, and I will try my best to let you know where I'm pulling this information from. Like jazz singers, many singers of popular music experienced slow periods during the 1970s, but most of the artists made successful comebacks in the 80s. Also, as in jazz, the older singers met with ever-increasing competition from younger ones. Paula Abdul, Anita Baker, Toni Braxton, Mariah Carey, Natalie Cole, Whitney Houston, and Janet Jackson, to name a few. Nevertheless, most of the older singers held their own. Aretha Franklin could announce confidently on her recording, Through the Storm from 1989, "I'm the Queen of Soul," and no one could contradict her. Tina Turner, another artist who made a comeback in the 80s, this time as a soloist, demonstrated her importance as a soul singer on such recordings as What's Love Got to Do with It and Private Dancer. So I just want to stop there because there's so much information right there. It's just such a rich mentioning of these singers and these artists, and we could stop right there and just make a whole episode about that. But what I want to do is just see if I can do a search. I have my computer in front of me. And by the way, I'm not going to be playing any music of theirs because I want to respect the copyright. And I see nothing wrong with describing what I see. So I may be tapping into a couple of sheet music sites just so I can see what's going on with the music. And even though we aren't teaching chords in today's episode, we'll start back teaching chords again. This is still part of, by the way, the Piano for Parents series. And we are using each week to mention chords that you may try on your own from a self-teaching perspective. We're referring to charts. So I will refer to the charts today, but I'm not going to be teaching any chords. I'll just look at your charts and posters to find the chords that we find in the songs that you may come across when it comes to these artists. So let's just take a closer look now. I'm going to just Google search Paula Abdul and see what comes up first. So the first thing that comes up is Wikipedia. So you can see a description of her and her photo, and then there's a mention of a tour, and then there are all these things that pop up. But what I'm more interested in doing is going to one of our sheet music sites and see what comes up there. So just bear with me. If you happen to be near a computer and you're not driving and you're not distracted, feel free to search along with us. Okay, so right away, Straight Up, that's the first song that comes up. And I'm not sure why, but it comes up. So if you care to, look up that song. Now, it does give credit to someone else. It says words and music by Elliot Wolf. Not sure who that is. But if you look down at the bottom of the sheet music, you'll see the record labels and you'll see the year that this came out. So it's definitely an 80s song. So right away, if someone wants to learn a song like this, there are two ways to approach it. Number one, you can use it as a lead sheet and just follow the chords. So I'm seeing a D minor chord, I'm seeing a B flat chord, a C chord, D minor, C and B flat, G minor, A minor, D minor, B flat, G minor, A minor, D minor. So just in the first page, and if you care to, you can search this on your own. There's a transpose option, which is why I like this particular site. So you can, search at your will, and then after that, if you want to transpose it, you can. You can view the full product details, and it contains the lyrics. So, right away it just talks about all of the quick details that are available for the song. But I want to, again, just point you in the direction of the chords that are used in the song. So the way it's described, it says moderate R&B shuffle. So that's just the style of the song. And some may say the genre. But I'm more interested in the chords. Now, you're probably wondering how to play a B-flat chord, because we have not talked about flats at all. We've talked about minor chords, and we've talked about major chords, but so far we've stuck with just C, F, and G, D, E, and A. We have not talked about the flat chords. So if you want to go ahead and get ahead of the podcast and look up your B-flat chord, you should be able to find that on your poster and on your chart. So I'll just spell it out for you. Right now I just have the poster in front of me, and so I can see in the first column of common chords, it's near the bottom of the poster. I just see B flat, and then I see a D, and then I see an F, and it's all shaded in, so you can't miss that. One of my students today also purchased for the first time a chord chart, and they chose the one with the red dots, so they're able to see how to place their hands on the keyboard, but not the fingering, just where to place their hands, where to place their fingers to play the chords that they need. So their particular sheet music uses only 4 chords. Okay, so now I want to go to Anita Baker. I'm just going to stay with the sheet music site. Now, we all know that Anita Baker is associated with love songs and romance songs. And we could start with My Funny Valentine, which she's also known for singing, but she didn't write that song. So let's go to Sweet Love. And right away you see her name, Words and Music by. There are 2 other people listed with her, but she's also one of the writers of this song. So Sweet Love is one of her signature songs, and right away, if you're looking at playing the chords, let me just tell you right now, there are some 9th chords, there's some split bass chords, and there are some 7th chords, and we need to talk about all of those, which we won't talk about until probably near the end of our 12 weeks. We're doing a 12-week episode to start, and if for some reason we don't get to it in the first 12 weeks, then we'll just take a break, take a week off, and then come back to it, and then talk about 7th and 9th chords in the next 12-week course. But all year long, we are talking about chords. So just stay with us. We'll see how far we get. I really like to pace myself in a way that I think that parents can appreciate and that they are able to handle with the many things that a lot of busy parents are doing with their households, with their families, with their careers, you name it. So that's an aside. That's the first aside. And then the second aside I wanted to mention was the Spreaker app. So I just want to give a a brief shout out to Spreaker. It was announced that they made some improvements to the app, and it really is useful. It makes it so much more hands-on to just access the podcast app. And so I'm looking into the future for this summer. I hope to be out and about a little bit more, especially as it warms up, and just maybe podcasting on the fly in New York City. So I'm really, really grateful to the improvements that are being made, and it really helps us in our podcasting. So shout out to Spreaker. And then what I also want to say is that as part of the Piano for Parents series, I'm hoping to, in the future, be able to just be out and about and just interview some parents that I'm working with and just get their opinions on how they think it's going with their own music making and with their children and their piano lessons and their impressions and so forth. Some parents will say, I really don't have a clue about what's going on. Others want to be a little bit more hands-on and say, can you show me something at the piano? And then others, again, will just say, you know what, this is not for me. This is for my son. This is for my daughter. Just let them learn how to do what it is they need to do to play and sing at the piano, if that's a goal. And so you just never know what the expectations are. And then some parents have no expectations. But whatever the case may be, I'm very excited about continuing to use this app to bring you information that may be useful to you. So it's not all about me. It really isn't all about me. I really try very hard to say what it is that I'm finding that you need, and then just steer you towards my colleagues that can help and other friends that I know who are out there that are very invested in having you learn to play the piano online and places that are convenient for you. So it's supposed to be a fun effort, and that's what I want to see happen, that more people can learn to play the piano in a way that's beneficial to them. And then, of course, there's the wellness aspect of it all. So from time to time, we will mention some of the wellness benefits that you may be getting out of it. And there's so many exciting developments in terms of health and technology and how to access information that can keep you well and keep you feeling well. Back to our question of the day, is music what feelings really sound like? Some of you think so, and some of you may not think so. Some of you may think everything should be cerebral when it comes to music, that you should just think about what you want to write. So I know that's the argument that's on the table. That's an argument that some of my friends have. They don't want to think about what they're going to play in terms of feelings. They want to think about what they're going to play and what they're going to write in terms of their own thoughts, their own actions. There's a formula for everything. So it's an interesting debate, really. So let's move on to Toni Braxton. So if I look at the same sheet music site, Unbreak My Heart. That's the first thing that comes up. And then there's some other songs that come up. But I would have to say this really is a song about love and romance, because how could it not be? But the chords are what we're looking at. So again, these are pretty advanced chords. We're talking about an F sharp 7th chord, a B minor chord, an E minor 7th chord, an A chord, followed by an F sharp 7th chord, followed by a G chord. Then you have a split bass chord, an A over G, and then F sharp 7. And that's just the intro. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to chuckle, but I'm just thinking about someone who's just delving into chords and they're going, what in the world? You know, I have to say I love my students because they will let me know what they're willing to do. They'll let me know right away where they're boundaries are in terms of learning, and they'll say to me, you know what, it's too much work for me to play 7 chords. I don't want to play 4-note chords. I just want to play 3-note chords. That's it, just triads. So that happened with one of my students recently, so we had to come to an agreement to just let her play, instead of a 7 chord, just play the chord as a minor chord, and that's it. So you may find that you want to do that. You can adjust it because it's your arrangement, it's your sound that you're trying to make. And so we will, again, just to give you a preview of what's coming up in the course, in the 12 weeks, we will aim to cover 7 chords in our first 12 weeks of the Piano for Parents series. So I hope that you will hang in there with us. Okay, now we're going to go on and see what comes up when we look up a song from Mariah Carey. Okay, so let's just click on Hero. Okay, so you know the words, how it goes. There's a hero. If you look inside your heart, you don't have to be afraid of what you are. And then it goes on. But if you just look at the intro, it may be daunting to someone who's just learning chords again to see an E add 9, and then you see a B over D sharp, followed by a C sharp minor 7th, followed by an E over B, followed by an A chord, followed by an E over G sharp, followed by F sharp minor 7th, followed by a B 9th suspended, and then an E add 9 again. So you can already start to see the sequence of this. So there are lots of changes. So that other question that we pose here on the podcast, what part of music is self-teaching? What part of music do you think you will need to involve a teacher with? So at what point will you need a teacher? I would say if you're looking at a score like this and you're seeing all of these changes, don't try to fake it. Be real with yourself and just get a music professional involved who can guide you through this. So that's my recommendation, but let's just keep going here. And you know what? I did say a lot of these songs would be from the 20th century. So if you're just joining us, we're here on CMajor before the show. We're talking about sounds of love and romance. I'm going to come back in a moment, and I'm going to let the music play, and I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we're just going to continue our discussion of the music of the 20th century that is associated with love and romance, and also in the spirit of celebrating Black History Month right here on CMajor before the show. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so if you're just joining us, you're here on CMajor Before the Show. We are live right here on Spreaker. Thank you so much for joining us here on our episode. We're talking about Sounds of Love. This is part of our Piano for Parents series, and we really are just focusing on chords that you may come across in some of the music of the artists that we're mentioning on today's episode. So we left off with Mariah Carey. The next person I'm going to take a look at music for is Natalie Cole. And let's see if I can pull that up really quickly and see what's going on with her music and see what's going on with the chords. So, of course, we have to see Unforgettable. And then we have to see Love. We have to see This Will Be. Let's take a look at. And you know what I like about this website is that they give you the sheet music with different versions. You can look at the scoring for choir plus piano. You can look at the score for piano, or you can just look for, now this is new. They have something for audition cut. That's interesting. But let's just take a look at the one that says lead sheet, because we really are just looking at the chords. Okay, so right away I can see there are some chords that we have covered. So the performance directions say moderately bright, and the chords are A, followed by F sharp minor, followed by B minor 7th, E 7th, A, F sharp minor, B minor 7th, E 7th, A, F sharp minor, B minor 7th, E 7th, and then it goes into the first ending, C sharp minor, C, followed by F, followed by E 7th. So these are advanced chords. We haven't gotten there yet, but you might just take a look at it if this is something that you're interested in. There is no transpose option for this. And even though it says by Natalie Cole, if you look at the words in music, it says by two other people that are not Natalie Cole. And this was a song that was from the 70s. So, okay. So just to give you some songs that you might listen to, and then we're going to type now the name of Whitney Houston. I Want to Dance with Somebody is the first song that comes up for this particular search. I Will Always Love You, of course, you can look at that one, but this one also has words and music by other people. Now, I know I said pop music. I use that in a general term. You may find other descriptions in the music, such as rock and R&B, but we're just saying pop within the context of popular culture. So if you can just bear with me for using that term, that's really what I mean. And so you can even use descriptions like alternative, whatever you want to use that's comfortable for you. But we're just referring to songs that you may find in the 20th century that are associated with love and romance, and we just called it overall pop music. So I Want to Dance with Somebody is described as moderate rock, but let's just look at the chords here. So I'm seeing an F chord, followed by a D minor 7th chord, and then you have other chords, B flat major 9th, then you have a G minor 7th, followed by an A minor, a B, I can't really see, I think that's a B flat 6th, a C 7th suspended chord, then followed by an F chord. And that's all just for the intro. And then it goes into the C chord. And so the song starts off, the clock strikes up on the hour when the, and then you can go into the second page. Okay, but the good news is that you have a lot of transpose options, which may make it easier for you to play it if you're trying to play this particular song. Okay, now let's go to Janet Jackson, because the list is say name a few. So we're trying to limit our names here and just go along with the description that was in our resource. So, again is first. That's the way love goes. Let's just click on again. I'm just really curious about that. Okay, so you know the words. I heard from a friend today, and she said you were in town. Suddenly the memories came back to me in my mind, and then it goes on from there. There are some transpose options. This was written for the motion picture Poetic Justice, if you want to look that up, and it was definitely something that we heard in the 80s. Words and music by Janet Jackson. She's listed first, James Harris the third, and Terry Lewis. So Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. And then slowly, you can play this slowly so you can get to the chords. It starts out with a C chord, which you know already from the Piano for Parents series, G chord, but then it goes into an A minor 7th. If you're comfortable, just play A minor, not the 7th yet, but if you're curious enough to look at your chord poster to find out what that is, then go ahead and find out what that is, followed by an F chord, C chord, G chord, A minor 7th, F chord, C chord. Even though you see a split bass chord, and we are still in the intro, D minor 7th over G, you can go ahead and just play a D minor chord for now, and then we'll talk about the pulling. It does make a difference. I was saying that to my students, that it's really going to make a difference if you leave out the 7th. It's the sound of it. It's really going to make a difference if you play a D minor chord in place of a D minor 7th over a G. Subtle differences to you, but big differences to anyone who's really listening for those chord changes, who knows the song well enough to know there should be something else there, and if you aren't intentionally trying to substitute that. Then it goes to a C chord, which starts the song, then followed by G, followed by A minor 7th, followed by F, C, G, A minor 7th, F, C, and then you go to the D minor 7th over G again. But you can see already we're starting to feel the sequence of the chords. So there's some repetition there. You can practice these chords slowly, and then just listen to it. See if you can play along. If it happens to be in the same key, again, there are some transpose options. And I would say this is a song that's associated with sounds of love and romance. So now let's go to Aretha Franklin. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to step out of this sheet music website and then just do a search online, Aretha Franklin, Through the Storm. Just see what comes up. And there it is. So Wikipedia, of course, comes up first, and it just tells you what number album it was and when it was released and the record label. So you can see all of this information. And so let's just take a look at, I want to go to a different sheet music site and see if it's there as well. Okay, so you hear me doing a lot of typing. And what comes up is something called an R&B fake book. So don't let that scare you. A fake book is a real book that has music, but it usually has just the treble staff with the melody, and then you have the chords above it. So you can count it as a lead sheet, but there's so many songs that you need, especially if you are gigging. So it just tells you some of the songs that you're going to run into. Now, I'm just going to read, because I like to be thorough as possible, as thorough as possible. So you'll see the description for the book. You'll see the item number. You'll see the ISBN number. You'll see that this book includes 375 songs, including 125 songs that were added because of the addition. And so what I was saying about fake book, because this question came up in piano class today over at the studio, the lesson studio, and the student wants to know what was meant by fake book. So it says, a fake book, in quotes, contains songs written in a concise format that includes only the melody and chords, letting you interpret the song's performance as you feel is appropriate. This is great for quickly learning songs by yourself or with an ensemble. So that's what's meant by fake book, and I like that they gave that description. And it's really from one particular publisher that's explaining this. So you can do the search for yourself. It just goes on to say each song in a fake book only has a single melody actually written out in notes, which is usually the vocal or lead melody. This melody will have the lyrics written beneath the notes with each word aligned to its corresponding note. Above the notes of the melody will appear the names of the appropriate chords to play. For example, A, in quotes, C minor chord would be written as C min. So you may see capital C M-I-N or C lowercase m, rather than writing out all of the notes in those chords as they appeared in the original version of the song. And then it says something else. So you also will see fake books that have more than 375 songs, for instance. But I know that I have students that have come to me for this very reason, that they run into a snag. So they're not sure what these symbols mean, and then they want to go ahead and just have a few lessons with someone who can explain that to them. So while I'm on that topic, let me just say that I glanced back at my notes from the 1950s, and you're just so amazed at the promises they were making and the ads that were running back then. It's just all so interesting. They were saying you could learn to play the piano in 5 weeks, 5 lessons, and you can send in just a little bit of money and you get your instructions for how to learn to play a particular style. You can learn to play the piano in 13 weeks, guaranteed. You can learn to play instantly and be playing the piano in 12 weeks. So it's just so interesting that we've had those claims in the mid-20th century, and those claims are still being made today. But I think it's different for everyone. So just find what you're comfortable with. Make the best music you can make. Do your best, and I think everything will be okay. It'll work out in your favor. Let's just take a look now at Tina Turner. So I'm going to stay on the same sheet music site and then just do a search for the music of Tina Turner. So right away what comes up is simply the best of Tina Turner. And so the same publisher gives you a song list. And then what I like is that they give you the option to look inside. So let's just look and see. So the best. I call you when I need you. My heart's on fire. I would say this song is about love. So the best, but it does say moderate rock. But right away, you see an intro, you see notes that you're supposed to play. There are no chord indications, and then as you go into the song, you start to see some of the chords that they're calling for. So take a look and see what you think. And now what I want to do is step out of this because I'm going to go on to the next paragraph. And it talks about probably one of my favorite artists of all time, Prince Rogers Nelson. And it says Prince Rogers Nelson moved into the 90s without a break in his continuing productivity. In September 1994, he surprised his fans with the announcement that he would no longer perform, dating from the period when he was called Prince, which was 1958 through 93. The critics found his new name to be an unpronounceable glyph. His album, Come, which came out in 1994, was described as including experimental and open-ended music, but the Gold Experience from 1995 was vintage Prince, with the lyrics as explicit as ever. He continues to play, personally, all the instruments on his recordings except the horns. So, I'm not going to do a search for the music of Prince, but I will say if you're interested in hearing music with the theme that we are discussing today, then definitely look into the music and just see what you find. I think in the future I may cover an episode with just the music of Prince. So I'm going to say that for the future. Now, I know it's a little bit controversial, but we can't talk about music of the 20th century without mentioning Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson maintained his domination of the entertainment field as the greatest entertainer of all time, not only because of the phenomenal sales of his records in the multi-millions and the immense sizes of his audiences, but also because he succeeded so well in a new form of television performance, the music video. Through the 1980s and into the 1990s, Jackson made important innovations such as a new dance music style in Thriller, which came out in 1982, that blends rock, disco, and bop. He returned with another new dance style in Dangerous from 1992, which uses New Jack Swing, a style developed by composer-producer Teddy Riley that blends rap with rhythm and blues. The big pop music winner in the 1980s was the old-fashioned love song and Luther Vandross, born in 1951. So may he rest in peace, but he's called the voice of his generation and could be dubbed the King of Love, based on the subject of several of his big hits, including Never Too Much, my favorite, from 1981, Here and Now from 1990, and Power of Love in 1991. So you can't talk about sounds of love and romance without mentioning Luther Vandross. And I had the great pleasure of meeting someone who covers a lot of his music. He's based in the UK, but he's a big name when it comes to Luther Vandross. So let me just do a Google search, and I invite you to do the same. So what I like is that the first thing that pops up is his personal website. So it says Home Official Luther Vandross site. So you can look there for the music that you may be searching for. And I know you're going to find a plethora of songs having to do with love and romance there. So even if you just look to the right column of your search, Dance with My Father, Endless Love, Always and Forever, it just goes on and on and on. Okay, so let's read on here. It says, a singer in the tradition of Nat King Cole and Johnny Mathis. He professed to have been inspired and influenced by women, particularly soul divas Dionne Warwick, Gladys Knight, and Patti LaBelle. Contemporaneous male soul crooners, including James Ingram, may he rest in peace, Lionel Richie, Peabo Bryson, Freddie Jackson, and Marvin Gaye. And Marvin Gaye's dates, if you're wondering, are 1939 to 1984. Like several singers and songwriters of his generation, Vandross also worked as an arranger and producer. But I don't think you can mention Luther Vandross without also mentioning Marcus Miller, which gave a lot of funk to a lot of his music with the way he played the bass. And I just think you have to look up Marcus Miller in the same breath that you are mentioning Luther Vandross. Then it goes on to say, groups as well as individuals found ready audiences for their love songs, to name a few. The male quartet Boys to Men, the Neville Brothers, and from the 1970s, the Pointer Sisters, Anita, June, and Ruth, still concertizing in the late 1990s. One journalist described the trio as having a sound that is by turns exuberant, joyful, sultry, powerful, and unforgettable. They jazz, they pop, they scat, they R&B, they rock, and they fly. That was the comment. And that was from the Pointer Sisters, Still Going Strong, from Big Red News, published in August of 1992. Another of the multi-talented performers who emerged during this period was Bobby Robert McFerrin Jr., who attracted wide attention for his talent in reproducing instrumental music sounds with his voice and other parts of his body using only his voice. He performed cello sonatas with the concert cellist Yo-Yo Ma. And so if you know anything about Bobby McFerrin and what he has done recently, you know that he was in Princeton and gave a performance there at Princeton University. So it's just really fortunate that we still have access to so much popular music and so many artists that gave us that popular music in the 20th century, and that they are, a lot of them, still moving forward with their music making in the 21st century. So I'm very excited about this. Thank you so much for tuning in. Give yourselves a round of an applause if you're still with us. Thank you for sticking with us tonight here on C Major Before the Show. And that's our discussion of sounds of love and romance found in pop music. And I hope that I gave you enough examples to tap into. So if you are in the market for such music for the month of February, then I think that some of the songs that I mentioned and some of the artists that I mentioned are definitely worth tapping into. So good luck with that. And just know that next week we will be returning to teaching you about chords here on the podcast by spelling them out and then giving you a sequence to follow, one that you can follow along easily. So please stay tuned for that, and also announcements about when we will be getting to certain chords. So 7 chords we will be getting to, I believe. Not so sure about 9 chords. I think I may wait on 9 chords for the first 12 weeks, but we'll see how far we get. But we have some exciting things coming up here on C Major Before the Show. Also, if you can, tune in a little bit later to the C Major radio show, because over there we're talking about writing down music and what that means over there. Also, our poll. Don't forget about our social media poll. I have some very exciting developments that have taken place when it comes to our poll. So let me just mosey on over to our Facebook page. So I can see that I have a message here. I'm going to mark it as read because I don't want to read it right now. And then I'm going to go over to my notifications. So I have some people reacting to my Punxsutawney Phil post. So that's fun to see. I'll respond to that later. But now what I'm doing is going over to C Major Before the Show. So last week we did mention that we were exploring Facebook Creator so that we could give you a little bit more preview of what's coming up on C Major Before the Show and the C Major radio show. So if you don't know, C Major Before the Show describes what's coming up on the C Major radio show, and we have developed a new format. Today's show is all about what feelings sound like. So I'm going to give you my opinion a little bit later before ending today's show about that. Okay, so what I really wanted to do was just go to the part where I mentioned the poll. Because following today's show, what I will do is post another poll. And I'm only going to give you 24 hours to respond to that poll because we don't want to keep it up forever. Okay, so if you're with us, we have a new poll. Check it out. It's over at Poll Everywhere. And so the question was, do you currently take piano lessons online? It was really just a test response. And then the options were yes, no, thinking about it. So I responded as C major just to get things going. So you'll see that I checked the thinking about it box. And then I have some other options for the future for placing a new poll. So see us for that, because what we're going to do now is announce that we placed a poll for you to take part in. We'll announce that over at Twitter. So at C Major Porter 1, that's where we will share the link. And also on the homepage of C Major Before the Show on Facebook. So see us either place. And then if I have a chance to, I will post it or mention it over at WordPress as well, over at C Major's Classroom. So we just want to do something a little bit more formal when it comes to a poll. I mean, so far I created a poll on Facebook, and the one that's posted now says it ends in 21 hours. So if you want to, what I did was just posted a question: are you taking piano lessons online yet? And then, of course, it's just a simple yes or no. But what we want to do with Poll Everywhere is eventually become so scientific that we're able to ask open-ended questions and really get some data that we can share here on the podcast. It can be very exciting. So I'm starting to spread the word now to people that I think may be interested in what we do here, and really bring that close to home and just start spreading the word within the greater New York City area. So online is tough. I would say that. I see some people posting things that they really want people to respond to, and they just don't get the response. And it's because it's hard to live online, I think. And I think that once you figure out how to make that easier and really start to tap into the audience that you have that's really close to you, then I think it does get easier over time, but it does take time to do it. So if you happen to be online and you're following us and you're checking us out, feel free, don't be shy. Just click on it. Are you taking piano lessons online yet? If you click yes, you're going to be clicking on Snoopy, and he's just saying yay, And then if you say no, you're going to be clicking on the rabbit from the movie. What was the name of that movie? I can't recall the name of the movie right now, but I'm going to describe it. It's the rabbit that's saying no, and it's when they went to get some sort of permission. It was the rabbit with the fox, and then they were being helped by the sloth. So that's all I can remember right now. I can't remember the name of this movie. Let me see if I could just search that real quick. Rabbit, sloth. And it should come up. Rabbit, sloth. That's all I'm typing. Zootopia, of course. That came out in 2016. Very funny sloth scene, very funny movie. Some people may not find it as funny. That's all I'm going to say. But I thought it was a really, really good movie. So, okay. So that's it for our Twitter poll. I'm calling it a Twitter poll because we're posting it on Twitter first. And then I think after that, in addition to the Facebook poll, we'll post it on Facebook underneath that or somewhere around that. And then CMajor's Classroom. But I think Poll Everywhere does give you the option to send it right to Twitter, and that's what we'll do in that order, and just see how it goes. So again, join us over at the CMajor radio show a little bit later tonight. I haven't posted what we're doing yet on today's episode over there, but it's definitely going to be a continuation of what we've done over here. So we'll continue the theme of Sounds of Love over at the CMajor radio show later on tonight, but within the context of writing that down. What I like to do over there is just tap into resources that will talk to you about the importance of sound and what those sounds mean, and it's a little bit more cerebral, I'll say it that way. So we do a lot more thinking over there. So in addition to exploring our feelings about music, we're also exploring what those feelings look like. How do you chart those feelings? Which staff do you put those on? Which fixed sounds are you using? What does that look when you write that out in terms of traditional notation? So, thank you again for listening. Thank you for joining us here on CMajor Before the Show. We invite you to join us next week for First Love. We'll talk about the chords in that song, and that should be a fun show for you, because I definitely have something more direct and specific to say about that. So if you have a chance to check out the song ahead of time, feel free to do that. I'm going to post a link to the song, and I'm always happy to send that to you as well if you make a request for that. So don't be shy about asking. See us over at Twitter at CMajorPorter1 on Twitter. And just so you know, I agree that music is what feelings sound like. I invite you to take some time to play some chords this week and see how you feel. Let us know your thoughts and your feelings. I think it's important. But we will see you again soon, right here on CMajor Before the Show. Take care, be well, and make the best music you can make. Thank you for listening.